In February of 2020, the now global pandemic that is COVID-19 began making headlines. Around this time, it was still in the early stages, and people were still saying the flu was more dangerous, and many weren't taking it seriously at all. Never in a million years could anyone have expected our stock market to plummet and everything to shut down, including professional and collegiate sports. Among those that didn't take it seriously was this guy, Utah Jazz center Rudy Gobert. A day after playfully touching microphones and coughing on teammates, he tested positive for the virus, and the NBA immediately ended the season. Days later, his teammate Donovan Mitchell tested positive, sending the sports world into a frenzy. After a difficult 3 months that included the NCAA tournament being canceled and no return date for the NBA in sight, basketball is back. Although the NCAA has no plans of returning, the NBA regular season and the playoffs will be resuming. In this video, we're going to be breaking down everything you need to know about the NBA's return. I'm Tricon, and this is Unpopular Facts. Before we get started, you know what to do. Go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button as well as the notification bell. I've gotten some feedback in the comment section and from people that watch our channel that I know personally, and everyone pretty much says the same thing. And so we're going to make adjustments to make sure that the videos are shortened. You look at the past videos, you see 26 minutes. I think we even have one as long as 30 minutes. So definitely going to take that into account, and we're going to shorten and try to compact our videos to make them like 10 to 10, 11, 12 minutes max. If there's any other thing that you guys would like to see implemented in our videos, just hit me up in the comment section, or if you know me personally, just message me on Facebook or wherever. And also be on the lookout for part 2 of this video. In addition to talking about how the NBA is going to return and breaking down the details, and to make our videos, compact and more short, and I'm going to make a part 2 to this because I think we also need to talk about the legacy of this championship right here, because depending on who wins it, that's going to be what dictates the narrative. If LeBron wins it, the narrative is going to be a lot different than if Giannis wins it, or Harden wins it, or Kawhi wins it. So the narrative is going to be dependent on whoever wins the championship. All right, so June 15th, that's when they want international players to start making their way back to the States. So the guys that maybe went back home, after the season shut down, to their international countries, wherever they may be in Europe, Australia, wherever, they're expecting them to start coming back around June 15th. Today is the 13th of June, so that'll just be, by Monday they should start coming back. That's going to be a week before the NBA players come back, and that's because they want those guys to quarantine. It's a mandatory quarantine for them that they have to, they have to quarantine for exactly a week. And so those guys, they're going to make their way back on the 15th. The American guys, they want them to start heading to Orlando on the 22nd, which is a week apart from the international guys, because of that week quarantine. And then when everybody comes back on the 22nd, on the 23rd, that's when testing will begin, and then they'll be tested every day after that. So I don't know how uncomfortable those tests are. I heard they can be uncomfortable. I don't know if they've resolved and try to make the test more comfortable, but I know when they put the swab down your nose, I know from people that have been tested that they've told me that it can cause a little discomfort. So yeah, so they're going to be tested every day. If a player tests positive, they'll quarantine for 10 days, and they have to have 2 negative tests, and they can get back out there on the court. Yeah, so things are definitely letting up as far as restrictions as we find out more about the virus. But that's a little interesting though. And I also heard that players do not have to return. This is voluntary. Players do not have to take this risk. So yeah. And I think there's because of the social unrest and everything that's going on, I've heard guys like Kyrie and Dwight Howard say that they possibly may not return. More so the social unrest than COVID-19. But yeah, so this return for the NBA season is voluntary. It's worth noting that. I mean, and Kyrie doesn't have a reason to return anyway. Once we got word that Kevin Durant wasn't returning, he might as well stay his ass at home too. And also, on the 22nd. That's when the transaction period begins. And so, and also worth noting, the Heat are trying to get DeMarcus Cousins. DeMarcus Cousins, you know, he tore his quad, he tore his ACL, and his Achilles all within like 2.5 years. I hope he does get back to form, but you know, all those injuries combined, I don't think we're gonna see the same DeMarcus Cousins. It's possible that he can still be an effective center, but that'd be interesting though for the Heat to get him. I know they got Bam Adebayo at the 5. I don't know how it would work with him and Bam at the 4 and the 5, because you know that's just not how the game is played with 2 traditional bigs anymore. But yeah, as far as free agency, when the season starts, only players who test positive can be replaced. Rosters are locked after the 8 regular season games. So you know, initially when the season comes back, every team will play 8 regular season games. It's going to be a continuation of the season. And let's just say one of the 8 teams that weren't invited back were on the schedule. If you were scheduled to face them, you just go on to the next game. Now, I don't know if I forgot to mention that, but yeah, 22 teams are being invited back. 8 teams, their season has ended. And of course, as you know, those players can't hop onto another team. Okay, that should be a no-brainer. Another thing we should note is that replaced players are ineligible for the rest of the season. So if a player has been replaced because they have COVID-19 or because they decided they don't want to play for whatever reason that may be, they're out. Okay, so if their team is in the second round of the playoffs, they could use them. They cannot come back. And so here are the dates. July 31st, that's when the first game will be played. And then August 16th and 17th, that's when the play-in tournament is, and I'll discuss that here in like a few seconds. August 18th, that's when the playoffs begin. September 1st, the second round will take place. September 15th, conference finals, and September 30th, that's when the NBA finals will take place. Now, on to the play-in tournament. This is the part that I'm actually most excited about, because this is basically like a fight for the 8th seed. Now, you know, when you read up on it, it can sound a little complicated, but it's really not that complicated, okay? And let me break that down. So, only teams that are within 4 games of the 8th seed advance to play in this tournament. So, if you're 4.5 games back, guess what? You're out, okay? Your season's over. Now, if there isn't a team that's within 4 games, the 8th seed automatically makes the playoffs. Now, that's more likely in the East than the West. So I'm going to start with the Eastern Conference, how things are going to go in the East first. And yeah, they still go by conference, and I think this would have been the perfect time to experiment with, you know, the other way around, 1 through 16 seeding. But that's not how it's going to work. So in the Eastern Conference, you got the Washington Wizards. They're 5.5 games back from Orlando, so they're not within that 4 games. Okay, with them being 5.5 games back from Orlando, and they're 6 games back from the Brooklyn Nets, who are the 7th seed, they have a lot of ground to gain in this tournament scenario. So for things to play out in Washington's favor, the Orlando Magic or the Brooklyn Nets would have to play pretty bad. Okay, and the Wizards would have to play pretty well, which they haven't been doing most of the season. So I would say in the East, things are pretty much set unless there's some kind of Cinderella story happening in Washington, which is possible because John Wall is coming back, and the Magic, they don't have any stars over there. Brooklyn, of course, doesn't have any of their superstars. Kyrie already said he's not coming back. So, it is possible for Washington to make a run. John Wall, I don't know how much of a difference he's going to make. There's been speculation that he may return, but will he be ready in a month? I don't think so. So, we'll see how things go in the East. Now, in the West, which everyone's talking about, it's far, far more interesting. So you got the Memphis Grizzlies. They're in the 8th seed. The New Orleans Pelicans, Zion Williamson and those guys, they're only 3.5 games behind the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, those 3 months off, that may play very well into New Orleans' favor, okay? Because, Zion missed most of the season. He didn't come back. When he did come back, he only played 19 games and he was on a minute restriction. So I think everything is going to play out in New Orleans' favor. And I would like to see them in the 8th seed versus one of the LA teams. I believe it's the Lakers in the 1st seed. So I think I would like people are saying Portland, but listen, we've seen Portland in the playoffs before. Okay, they're gonna maybe make the second round. I mean, they're playing the Lakers, so they're not gonna win that series. Okay, we've seen Damian Lillard led teams. All right, it's cute. Okay, it's cute, but cute can only get you so far. So yeah, I would like to see the Pelicans in that 8th spot. Well, yeah. So other teams that are 3.5 games behind the Memphis Grizzlies. You got the Kings, Portland, and Sacramento. So all those teams are. I mean, that it's gonna be serious business in the West, because those teams right there are all eager for a playoff spot. You talk about Sacramento and Buddy Hield and De'Aaron Fox. Those guys are hungry. Of course, you got Dame Time. I've already spoken about them. But you also have the Spurs. Okay. Never underestimate Greg Popovich. You can't. I mean, he's the greatest coach of all time. The Spurs aren't the same Spurs of the 2000s and 2010s, but I would not underestimate the genius that is Greg Popovich. They're only 4 games back from the Memphis Grizzlies. And then you got the Phoenix Suns, and this is kind of a long shot. They're 6 games back, and I don't think I don't think Phoenix is going to make it. Maybe they can make some noise, but I think that's about it. I would say Devin Booker and those boys are better off just packing it in. But yeah, as far as the playoffs go, I think the team I want to see in the playoffs is Zion Williamson and the New Orleans Pelicans, like I said before. But you got Brandon Ingram, who was an all-star, okay, had a breakout season. Lonzo Ball, Drew Holiday. Lonzo Ball and Drew Holiday, that's one of the better defensive backcourts in the NBA. And we can't forget how Drew Holiday, embarrassed Damian Lillard in the 2019 playoffs. Excuse me, that may be the 2018 playoffs. But I don't know if you guys remember, Damian Lillard looked like he didn't even want to play basketball. So I think this is the team everyone should want to see. I like Ja Morant, I like Jaren Jackson. I think they have a bright future. But the team that I want to see go up against the Lakers is Zion and the Pelicans. Which I really should be saying Brandon Ingram and the Pelicans, because Brandon Ingram, he was the only all-star on the team. And of course, this is coming from a Spurs fan, but I just don't think the Spurs, they don't have what I like to call the upset factor. I don't think they really have that in them. I just think it's time to blow things up in San Antonio. But overall, I'm just glad to have the NBA back. I think that's going to be great for everything that's going on right now. There's been a lot of negativity out there, a lot of negativity being spread. So just something positive, something different to talk about, and I'm just glad to have it back. But be on the lookout for part 2. Part 2, we're going to be talking about the legacies of the eventual 2020 champs. We're also going to be looking at, as far as contenders and superstars go, what it's going to mean if they lose, if LeBron doesn't win his 4th ring, if Kawhi and the Clippers, they don't win a ring, if the Rockets luck up and get a ring, if Giannis gets his 1st ring. We're going to be breaking it all down in part 2. Nonetheless, the NBA is back. Tricon Unpopular Facts. Till next time.